how many years were you in CIA until you were elected to Congress? And during that time, did you ever meet the infamous British double agent Kim Philby?
No, I never met him. I did spend time in London. We were forward based in those days. Covert action was done in a different way than it is today. If you followed the papers, you understand CIA has been completely reorganized. The old tribes have been broken down with new titles and put in different places in the agency. Big emphasis on diversification, career building, winning the popularity contest of the best place to work in Washington. All those things which were not there when I joined. This was mission oriented when I joined, and it's sacrifice, and you better get used to it. Those days are definitely behind us. I had a couple of great experiences early on. Somebody looked up the Rolodex when the Russian started to put missiles into Cuba, and I was young. I was a photo interpreter, courtesy of my Army training. I spoke a little bit of Spanish, and I did a lot of small boat handling because that was a job I had growing up, was handling small boats. So somebody went through the Rolodex and called me in and said, "You are on your way to Miami, next stop Cuba." So I had just a wonderful front row seat at what I think was the most dangerous time in our life in terms of nuclear hazard. There's one or two other in competition, but it was a very scary time. And I put my wife, who was pregnant at the time with her first child, in a car, and we drove immediately to Miami and spent some considerable time there doing photo interpreter, and then they figured that all out, so then I got to do small boats, and that was a lot of fun. The only hallmark I think I could reveal on that at this point is that I don't think I met any Cuban refugees ever coming out of Cuba that were sober at the time. Almost everybody had managed to fortify themselves for the trip, and by the time they got to Florida, they had drained the bottle, usually. But it was great for a young guy to see all these things and live this.
And how many years were you in CIA until you joined Congress?
Well, I did that until I was overseas, and my health got some weird poisoning, and my mother-in-law always assumed it was the Russians. It was still not giving up that game. But that was the story. Actually, I think I just got one of those incredible sort of bacterial infections that damn near killed me, and took me about 2 years to get over it. So I had to leave the agency. They said I was no longer fit for duty, so I left in '72, started a whole new life in Florida, and from '72 until really about 1988 didn't pay much attention to what was going on in the world of national security. I had a whole other life in Florida, getting involved with the environment, local politics, trying to build a city from scratch, doing completely different things. When I got back to Washington in '88, because we had a vacancy in Southwest Florida, Congressman, some people tapped me and said, "Well, you've been there before, why don't you go?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how to be a congressman." He said, "You'll find out." And so I went, and I found out very quickly. The first guy I ran into was a guy named Dick Cheney. And he said, "So I understand you were in the agency." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, stick around for a while. Let's see how it goes." And what finally happened is I ended up going on the Intelligence Committee, and that became my perch in Congress, starting in about, really formally in about '94, but even before that. So I had 10 good years on the Intelligence Committee for the House. Think I was one of two, perhaps three, that had actually served in the agency and then gotten elected to Congress. There were not many people who knew much about the intelligence business in Congress, so much so that when I took over the committee as the chairman, and I did that for 8 years, I created a glossary of intelligence terms for the members of the committee so they could understand what the briefers were saying when the briefers came in and talked to us wanted their oversight approval for programs. It was a very mysterious thing. And I sort of felt I had to coach the agency people to trust us, but I couldn't really guarantee them that the people they were talking to really understood the importance of the secrecy or understood what they were really talking about. A covert action was, what's the difference between a clandestine matter and this, a secret matter, and so forth. So it was a bit of a bizarre time, a lot of learning curve, and we were doing pretty well at it. And then, of course, 9/11 came along, and that changed everything. But the long and the short of your story is I went in a gap of about 16 years of just being totally out of that and into something else.